to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and
He hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Tuesday. High atop the 18th green from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by our good friends at BB's Market, part of the Wow Club and Endeavor Hospitality. Make sure you go to your Apple App Store, Google Play Store, sign up for the Wow Club, start earning Wow rewards today. They are a sponsor of IU Athletics, more importantly of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Hope everyone is well. Welcome aboard Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com, who is always with me. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Jim. How are you doing this morning?
Just peachy. We've got that September weather here, which is nice and crisp in the morning. Pretty cool at night. Of course, our friends down in the Florida area dealing with the hurricane. I know we have a lot of people that are able to watch the show, listen to the show via other methods, podcast, YouTube, that live down in Florida. So we are thinking of you guys. Speaking of the devil, Dustin, where is this thing right now?
It's I don't know where exactly it is. I mean, it's I think it's through the Caribbean, and it's coming. It keeps continually shifting east and west. It can't make up its mind. Usually this late in the game, it's pretty apparent where the hurricane's going to hit. And now it seems to be headed straight for Tampa, and then it's going to pass over Central Florida. So they expected it to hit some places. It was projected between a Cat 4 and a Cat 3. So it's going to be a wild time. It's not fun, especially for those folks on the coast. So if you are listening there, be safe. Listen to everything that the emergency services are telling you, because it's not going to be fun.
No, and trying to get a map pulled up to see where that thing is, but yeah. Mike says he believes it passed over Cuba. Ooh, that's not very far out then.
No, it's basically here, knocking on the door.
It's just going up into the Gulf, I guess, and deciding exactly where it's going to come ashore. Yeah, I'm looking at Ian rapidly intensified. It stopped. It's a Cat 3. Yeah, he goes over. See it going west of Havana. But they don't let it keep going, damn it. They keep just throwing me like a 2-second clip.
What's weird is it's ranged everywhere from like the western point of the Panhandle all the way down to Tampa. Like there was a giant, I don't know what I call it, the cone of shame, cone of doom. It had the widest cone of doom I think I've ever seen for a hurricane. And so I think they finally know at least about where it's going to hit, but it was shifting pretty consistently, which was very uncommon for a hurricane at this late in the game. Usually you can get a pretty good indication of where it's going to hit, but this one's indecisive.
Yeah, it looks like it's kind of here in the Tampa area, and we have a lot of listeners that I know that are people that I know that are. Hope everyone is estimated rainfall. Wow, Tampa 10 to 15 inches.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be a problem, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's that. Which our friends down at the Ugly Grouper, which is Anna Maria Island, which is straight out from Oh, wow. And that's who they're highlighting right now as I'm watching this because of the storm surge.
Oh, is it really?
So hope all of our hope all of our friends down at Anna Maria Island at the grouper are getting out of there. Because yeah, Anna Maria Island is extends out. It's like due south of the bay that opens up for Tampa Bay. And then there's Anna Maria Island. You got St. Petersburg, Clearwater up above, then the opening that goes into the bay, and then Anna Maria Island down, which is west of Sarasota. So, yeah. All right.
So speaking of, on a positive weather note, I got a question here. So we talked about the September weather, cool, at night it gets crisp. Do you sleep with the windows open?
It depends on the humidity.
Okay.
But
makes sense.
Yeah, but see, it sucks because you got it's 2 floors. It's temperature on one floor, the second floor. But I absolutely try to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I always did too. I like the as long as you got the screen over the window. I'm not opening it if there's no screen, so a bat can fly in. But September, October is great.
Dwayne B on with it already. Larry, Mike. Yes, it is a chilly Tuesday. John C. David G. Michael, the music man. 5 lefts on already. Jason. Mike says he, as usual, watching and listening from the land of legend and French Lick. That's right. Ross is on already. Hi to everyone.
Imagine the Walmart craziness. I like that.
Oh, that's true. Tim says Schwarber gets 42nd home run. The first big to get 40 homers since 1970. First IU player to get 40 homers since 1950. That had to be Klaczewski, who played football for Indiana and baseball for the Reds. He's the 3rd big league player to hit 40 in a season. He must mean IU big league player.
Probably.
I'm assuming on all of that. Right. But congratulations to him. Yeah, let's hope not. Yeah, Tampa's going to be hit hard. And let's see. The judge is still stuck at 60, I believe. Is that correct?
I believe so. I don't think he got another one last night.
I know Pujos, and I know it's Pios. I just like to say Pujos. Pujos, he got 2. He got 6. He got the 99 and 700 over the weekend, didn't he?
He did. And did you see the stat? I can't remember exactly what it was. I don't have it in front of me, but it's something like Albert Pujols has spent 5 hours of his life just running around the bases after a home run, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot.
It's a lot of base running.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's others that have done more, but that means now how do they know that? How are they timing that? Is he a fast runner or is he a slow trotter? Does he milk it? Some guys like to milk and home run trot a little slow.
Right.
And then then you got the crazy guys. They just zip around that sucker, man. Woo!
My guess is however he's ran it, maybe the last couple times is what they timed it as, and then they just multiplied it by 700 and gave you the estimation. Because there would be no way to calculate that. I doubt they although it is baseball, so they might track base running speed after a home run. You never know.
Baseball been very, very good to me. Speaking of baseball, what do we got? A few games left?
I think we're under 10, I believe. We're down to this Yankees-Blue Jays series is, I believe, pretty big.
Oh, last night. Yeah, the Blue Jays won last night.
They did, but it's
not close enough.
No, the Jays are 7.5 back. So basically the Yankees have to lose now.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull that up again, but they had gotten close.
The Braves Mets race is, I think, the only race worth watching at this point. It's a one game. The Braves have 2 more left against the Nationals, and then a 3-game series against the Mets, which could determine the NL East.
What do you mean could? How's it not? Wow,
Well,
that's how it should be, baby. Coming down to it, going to play each other. That's incredible.
I know. It's going to be exciting.
Now, it won't determine a playoff, but it will determine the division winner because both of those teams will make the playoffs.
Right.
Let's see. 1, 2. Ooh, the Phillies are not going to make it. Well, not as of right now. Padres got them beat barely.
We got the wild in the wild card. What is it? It's 3 teams.
Yeah, Padres.
The Braves, the Padres, and Philadelphia. So they've got
Philadelphia will be the 3rd team.
Yeah, they've got a 1.5 lead on the Brewers. So that could be interesting though. They don't happen to play, do they? No.
The Mets and the Braves. That's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'm fired up about it.
How wild is it that it came down to that series? I mean, that's
crazy.
Crazy.
And the fact that it was near the end of the season, it's the second to last series.
Yeah, Peyton Manning mentioned he's going to be coaching the AFC flag football team, and that's another thing. They're having a flag football game to replace the Pro Bowl. But the Manning cast. Well, let's see. Another interesting stat. Pujols has hit exactly 500 home runs versus right-handers and 200 versus left-handers.
Wow. How about that? That's crazy.
When you get to right at 700, yeah, that's interesting. The Manning cast returned last night. Man, the 3rd quarter was a comedy show. I laughed so hard.
Was that Tracy Morgan?
This was just Peyton and Eli. No, it's hard for 3 people to be funny because of the slight delay.
Yep.
One person delays, the other person thinks they doesn't hear them, and then that person starts to respond, but this other person didn't think that they heard them, so they start talking, and I see a lot of that. But no, the 3rd quarter, they were just killing me, cracking me up with they were just funny.
I thought I thought when Pat McAfee was on, he did an excellent job too, especially since they broke down the butt punt. That was fantastic.
How does he not? We'll talk about more of that later. Lots more coming up on the program. JTP, what do we got?
We've got our good friend Mike DeCourcy coming up next, and then later on, Chronic Hoosier.
And we're going to hear from Woody today. And
that's right. We'll hear from Woody, Jalen Hood-Schifino, and CJ Gunn.
Cool. Lots more coming up on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from BB's Market, part of the Endeavor Hospitality Group and the Wild Club. Make sure you go to the Wild Club at your Apple App Store, Google Play Store. Sign up, start earning Wild rewards today. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're visiting...
Morning, Mike.
Morning, guys.
Good morning, Mike.
Mike, I've got a free rental Florida vacation rental I can rent real cheap in this week if you have time on your hands.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. You're so generous.
I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Where is that, Jim? Where's the place?
Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm just making that up.
Oh, I thought you had a...
No. Totally making it up.
I see.
I do, but I do have friends that are down. Well, there's a ton of listeners too that are down in that area. But
yeah, I hope everything's well with them. I really do.
The ugly grouper that it's on Anna Maria Island, that could become the epicenter, man.
Man, I hope it doesn't. I hope it's not bad. That's going right into the heart of some beautiful places.
Mike, do you find it hard to get excited for the World Cup because of the placement of it in the calendar this year?
No, it's still the World Cup. I mean, I'm not happy about it because I see what it's done to all of soccer. And the person that I feel bad for, and this is going to happen. It's going to happen a lot. I remember, like in 2006, I can't remember the guy's name. He was a defender, and he picked up a bum knee. And on the last day before they made like the final announcement of the 23-man roster for Germany, ESPN had like an inside kind of thing, and they showed Bruce Arena sitting there talking to this guy and how he broke down in tears because he was that close. He was good enough, and he would have made the team if he was healthy. And there's going to be dozens of those guys all across the 32 teams because the Premier League season ends, and the other major international leagues, they end like on November 10th or something. Or November 13th or whatever that Saturday, Sunday is. And then like a week later is the World Cup. I mean, so if you like sprained your ankle, like on your last game, then you have a month to recover. Now, if you tweak your ankle, you might miss the World Cup. And that's, like I said, it's going to happen to dozens and dozens of players. We just don't know who and how many.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go.
Episodes of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, here on this Tuesday, coming to you high atop the 18th fairway from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Brought to you by our good friends from Southern Stone Restaurant, where each Wednesday, 7:05, you can find Inside Indiana Football with Don Fisher and Tom Allen. Great place to stop by for a meal any other time as well. Mike DeCourcy joins us from the Sporting News. Hello, Mr. DeCourcy. How are you, sir?
Jim, Dustin, how are you guys today?
I noticed you're wearing your Big Ten sweatshirt that I'm sure that
it's network. This is supporting the network.
Okay. No, well, I was going to show last year when they gave us Dustin, when was this? This is probably 2 years ago, maybe?
It was 2000. It's 2022. So it was 2021 Media Days.
These really nice coffee mugs that I love to use, and then it also used to say Big Ten on it. But it no longer does. It's just B. Well, you be good, be great. So I'm gonna, the dishwasher is not a safe place for.
They probably told. There's probably a little piece of paper somewhere that said, "Don't put this."
Oh, I'm sure. I'm not blaming anyone. Trust me, especially. And I think that last, it was prior to here, but that thing, I'm like, good Lord, they got blow torches in that thing. I mean, I'd open it up and it was like, wow. I was like, no wonder it came off. I get it. You can press uniforms in that thing.
Yeah.
How's everything going with you?
Everything's great, except the Steelers are 1-2. Other than that, all life is good, And then, of course, the men's national team played maybe their worst game in the last 4 years on Friday. They go again today at 2 with a chance to erase that disaster against Japan from memory. We'll see how that goes. But these are their last 2 games. We were talking in the break about the fact that the World Cup is in the middle of November to December this year. And ordinarily it happens in June, from early June to early July. And in order to accommodate Qatar, which is interesting because at the time they made their pitch, they said, oh yeah, we can do this because we can air condition the stadiums and it'll be fine. And then as soon as they won, they said, no, we can't do it. Almost as soon as they won, no, we can't do that. We need to play it in November. And the whole world had to acquiesce to that. So here we are. And I know there will be players who, because they pick up, a sprained ankle or whatever in their final regular season game before the World Cup break, which is only going to happen a week before the opening game in the World Cup. I know there are going to be lots of players who wind up missing this tournament because of something like that. And I think that's a shame, because I was telling the story in the break. I wish I remembered the defender's name. He played for the U.S. and he was going to make the team, but then he sprained his knee and wasn't going to be ready for the World Cup in 2006. And ESPN had a sort of an all-access kind of story about the final prep for the World Cup. And he sat down on a bench with Bruce Arena, and Bruce Arena had to tell him he wasn't going to be healthy enough to play in the World Cup, and they were going to have to move on without him. And I mean, he broke down crying, and because this was his dream. And I'm telling you, for the U.S., somebody's going to maybe miss out on a dream in 26. The good news, 22. The good news is that they're all teenagers, so they'll be back for 26. But somewhere, somehow, there's going to be some players who this was their last shot, and maybe their only shot. Maybe for the U.S., probably not, but from some other countries. And they're gonna miss because of the having to have it in November.
See, are they is the U.S. kind of in a wheel spinning mode right now?
I think that the fact that they've had so many players injured. I mean, this is an example. This is like sort of an example. That they're missing. They played against Japan, missing 4 to 5 starters, depending on what one's view is of the goalkeeper situation. I became convinced and was already leaning in that direction that Matt Turner should be the United States goalkeeper in the World Cup. But Greg Berhalter, the head coach, does like Zach Steffen. So if you count him as a missing starter, okay. If you don't, okay. There's at least 4. There's still, out of 11 players, that's a lot of guys, because you didn't have Jedi Robinson at left back. You didn't have Christian Pulisic on the left wing. You didn't have Timothy Weah on the right wing. And you didn't have Yunus Musa in the midfield. That's 4 guys out of 11. I mean, that's nearly half the team. And some of it showed, and some of it, they should have been better even without those guys than they were on Friday. But it does impact how you progress, how you develop when those players are absent.
Dustin?
I am less than useless when it comes to soccer talk. I have no idea. So
we can move along.
I could tell. That's why I threw that at him. I was laughing.
This is my fault. I shouldn't have brought it up in the break.
Yeah. Well, we can move along.
But there's
other stuff to talk about. Let's do it.
You guys can talk about it all you want. I'm not. Hey, I enjoy watching it. I just don't know much about it.
I'm just now watching the the coach for. Was it Buffalo coach, the coordinator in the booth?
Ken Dorsey, yes.
Great
Amazing.
Stuff. The best part about that whole thing, if you haven't seen it, after Buffalo fails to win their game because they couldn't get a playoff, and they had the player who caught the ball, I don't remember who it was, in a late situation, tried to get extra yardage, tried to get out of bounds, didn't get out of bounds, so they couldn't get off the last play. So the offensive coordinator rips off his headset. I could see that, right? Then he starts throwing the papers, the playbook, the play chart, all that.
This is a baseball. This is a baseball tantrum. This is exactly what it is.
And then all of a sudden, and the best part of this is after all this happens and we see every second of it, somebody covers the camera. Like we already saw it, folks. There's nothing left to see. They were just as late to cover the camera as they were to run that last play.
But see, I'm okay with that. I want my coach to get that pissed off. I mean, I think it's great. I love it. I think it's hilarious. I hope he did not. I think it's great TV. I think it's great sports. I think I love it. I love
throwing off the headset was good passion. The tearing up of the papers and the play chart was childish, and
it was. But that's why it makes it so funny.
Any adult under any circumstance should be above that.
Yes, but it sure gave a good laugh, man. I enjoyed the heck out of that.
It was funny.
That was better. That was better than a baseball, because a baseball, they got a bat and they're usually beating up the water cooler, which to me, that's dumb. I'm like going, oh yeah, beating up a water cooler with a bat, big boy, because he couldn't hit the ball. But those guys cracked me up. This just made me laugh so hard. And speaking of which, how about the Manning cast? Do you get a chance to catch that?
I am not a regular watcher of the Manning cast.
If you like comedy, you're doing yourself a disservice by not.
I like comedy and I like football. I don't
the
like
third
comedy
quarter.
and football.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of that. The third quarter was just funny, but the great thing is, though, the whole time Peyton he's watching the game. No matter what these other two, whether it's McAfee and Eli, they're talking. Peyton, you can see he's bobbing, his head's bobbing with the play. You know, he's in the huddle. You can just tell. It's so funny how he relaxed. He's like, oh, it just. What are you doing? What are we doing? He's sitting there screaming like he's coaching on the sideline. But he doesn't lose fact of he's involved in these little barbs, and he can throw a barb right back like he just threw a pass out in the flats at the same time. It's funny. I love it. I enjoy the heck out of it personally. And Pat McAfee was on one of the last night. They had Jimmy Johnson on last night, which they were talking about the how about them Cowboys. He goes, I should have trademarked that thing. I could have made a lot of money. He said, yeah, I think Jimmy Johnson says he owns the trade rights to that thing now, baby. I mean, Jerry Jones owns the rights to that now.
I don't think Jimmy's going to miss a meal soon, though. I think he's done
thinking that very thing. Yeah, I was thinking that very, 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 very thing. See, NFL, the Colts get a gigantic win over the Chiefs after laying an egg. But you know what? I don't know how much the Jags are better than people think. Trevor Lawrence is getting better. They're 2-1. And we talked about this yesterday. I was going through all these young quarterbacks that we just watched in college just a couple of years ago. Man, they're getting good quickly. Justin Fields, who were some of the ones we talked about? Dustin?
Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa. But I mean, just some really good play from those guys. I mean, the Dolphins are 3-0 and they just got a win over the Bills. The Bills have been scoring at will, and they completely shut down Buffalo. So I've been really impressed. I think a lot of people, and look, it's the NFL. I don't technically I don't like to use the term upset in the NFL. They're professional athletes. They get paid a lot of money. That's their job, is to win football games. But I think that would probably, a lot of people thought that Miami would get exposed because they don't think they're that good. Boy, through these first 3 games, they've just found ways to win.
Well, and they've played terrifically on offense. I will say that when the Dolphins gave the big contract to Tyreek Hill, I had my questions. Not that I didn't think he was great, but I didn't know that it would make as big a difference in their attack as it has. He's phenomenal. I mean, he may be the best I've ever seen. He does things that I thought Antonio Brown was in that category, in the debate about best ever. I mean, Jerry Rice, it's always hard for me to figure out Jerry Rice. He was so good that I never saw him make a great catch because no one was ever near him. And I could never quite figure out like how much of that was scheme, how much of that was him. So it's hard for me to compare him, but I see a guy like Hill who just completely destroys defenses as from the wide receiver position. And Brown was really good at that, but not like this. And he's made an enormous impact on the Dolphins and what they've been able to accomplish. And he's made a huge difference for Tua, a player that I will confess that I did not think was elite when they took him as high as they did. But putting those two together has really been successful. It has turned out to be a very wise move, and it led to a lot of people sort of copycatting that and saying, okay, well, wideout is the thing. You got to have guys like that. So let's go pay them all $25 million. And I think that the number of guys who are worth that is a lot smaller than people realize. The Steelers didn't pay that, but they paid Deontay Johnson a good contract. And Deontay gets open with anybody, but so many times will drop the big pass. And but Hill doesn't do that. And I think that's been a big difference. What he has brought to the Dolphins, just phenomenal. And scheme helps, but it's, the things he does after the catch, nobody can scheme that up, man. It's hard to even imagine that humans can do some of the things he does.
Hate to jump around. KB, Kevin Brockway, your old buddy, commenting, but now that he's on here, I hate to jump around, but how about them, that Braves Mets series that's coming up? I cannot believe that their last series of the year is going to be between those two teams. And the division is without question going to come down to that series.
Well, and baseball, given that it's so predictable that the wealthiest teams are going to win, you should be able to scheme up those kinds of series all the time. You should it shouldn't be hard at all to figure out that you could put a division series on the line. Oh gosh, the Braves and the Mets are really good. What a shock.
Yeah.
Hey.
As soon as you said that, I'm like, okay, yeah, it makes total sense because who are the Cardinals and the I wonder who the Cardinals are playing last, just out of curiosity, if it's the Brewers, because that would have been expected for that. But KB, I wonder if.
All right, here's K-Bro and I are going to have to meet up to watch the Braves Mets series because I've got a victory cigar waiting for when the Braves overcome this, what was a 11.5 game deficit to the Mets, steal the division again. It's going to happen. The Mets are going to Mets.
Boy, that would be hard on that franchise if they end up losing that that lead was I don't know if that was back in June or July, but
it was early, but it was a sizable advantage.
A lot of games, no matter how many games are left. There's no doubt. It's been an amazing comeback by the Braves, and to a lesser extent, collapsed by the Mets. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. It reminds me of 1969 when the Cubs had such a vast lead over the rest of the NL Central. It was the National League East, I guess, at the time. And here come the Mets, man. And I was actually at a doubleheader that I was only a little kid, but I subsequently, that was identified as the turning point. There was a doubleheader Friday night, I think, what they used to call a twilight doubleheader.
Yeah.
Hey, remember those? And both games ended 1-0. I think it was Kuzman and Seaver, or I don't remember, something like that. And the winning pitcher drove in the run both times, and that was viewed as like the turning point in the Mets being able to come back and take that, and eventually they won the World Series. So it does remind me of that. The Cubs, that was a classic Billy Goat season because they had such a huge lead and they were such a terrific team, but weren't able to hold the lead.
John's telling us we have to take a break. We've got more to talk about, and we will, because I was going to point out that, I make fun of my Reds all the time, but if they hadn't had that 2-24 start or whatever, they would have probably won 71 games and finished, at least it looked respectable for them. So, but we'll much more to come up here. Mike DeCourcy joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Goteen, a proud member of the Endeavor Hospitality family and the Wow Club. Go there and sign up. We've got more coming up. Back from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
The sun is out. The birds are. Should have gotten K-Bro on today. Talk about his little Metsy poos.
Well, here's the other thing though. That series could get rained out.
Oh yeah.
No, they're no way.
It's in Atlanta, and the whatever you call it, the rain coming in
Well,
from the
they're not
hurricane is supposed to encompass the entire state. So,
well, but they're not going to not play it. Move it to
Well,
the
they'll-
Georgia Dome, baby.
they'll
Whatever
play it,
stadium
but
they
I just
have
don't know
now,
when it
Mercedes-Benz.
will be played. It might have some
Move
double
it to the
headers.
Mercedes-Benz Stadium,
go.
whatever they call.
I don't know if the Falcons have a home game this weekend or not.
How many stadiums has Atlanta gone through in the last 20 years? I went to the Georgia Dome for the Final Four in 2002. And I know there was Fulton County Stadium that baseball used to play in. Then wasn't there a between
the Olympic Stadium that they had for track and field, and then they chopped it up and made it into a baseball park downtown.
Turner Field.
Turner Field, yes.
It's still there. It's now Georgia State's home football stadium, I believe.
Huh. It's a very flexible stadium.
It is, yes. Or at least when I used to drive by there frequently, it had all the Georgia State stuff. So that's what I assume they used it for. I don't know for sure.
Here's a couple things. Pete up in Minneapolis said that he just read an article that the Tampa Bay Chiefs might be played up there in Minneapolis.
Well, they did move Tampa Bay to they're practicing at Miami right now.
I would have preferred Houston or Dallas.
Yeah.
Something that does not have a Florida address.
Yep.
And another Larry G's pointing out that the Mets Brave series is not the last series of the season. The series ends next Monday through Wednesday, which is kind of weird. Braves at Marlins is the final series for Atlanta. Nats at Mets.
Well, so the Mets Braves is the last series of the. Those two teams are not good.
All right, here we
That's
go.
funny. K-Bro jumped on here today. I was just thinking him last night.
Your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you here on this Tuesday, high atop the 18th fairway from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. It's going to be another beautiful day out there. Looking forward to enjoying that crisp fall weather as it is here. Football season's in full swing. High school football season's more than half over. That's crazy. Seriously, it blows my mind. We're deep into, what are we into? Week 4 of the college football season. Major League Baseball about to reach the playoffs. You've got lots of storylines. Mike Pujols just he reaches 700 in dramatic fashion with he'd go gaps and then all of a sudden boom, let's just get this over with. 699 and 700, which is a huge accomplishment. And of course, everyone's waiting to see what the judge is going to do. It's just a matter of time for him. I mean, he could bunt one and is he not like one of the biggest humans to play? Seriously, what is he 6'7"?
He is 6'7", yes.
It's not even fair. It's like watching David and Goliath play when he's at the play. I'm like, good Lord. I mean, I know that he's not the first. I mean, there's been Randy Johnson, who was 6'10", but he was not a guy at the plate with a bat. Randy Johnson's daughter went to IU, by the way. Just finished and left here last year, but which is wild. Things you don't know. But yeah, it's just it's just to see an athlete. Has there been anyone to compare to him, Mike? That imposing size as a baseball player?
Well, McGuire was pretty big, right? I mean, McGuire had to be at least 6'5".
Was he?
I think so. Let's see. Let's. Yeah, he was 6'5". So I think that there's a similar build and similar size and strength and that cut. That obviously very muscular and we know that McGuire broke records and excited baseball and he's become something of a pariah since.
And why is it that he seems to get more than anybody? And I don't get that because he was probably at the end more open and honest than a lot. Was honesty, did that crush him? Because you look at Barry Bonds, who's never said a word, and he cheated his ass off.
Well, but he gets as much. I mean, he's one of the great baseball players in the history of the game. He's not in the Hall of Fame. I mean, so he gets a lot of guff too. I've always been turned off by the whole approach toward that era of baseball because no one's on it. We don't know who did, who didn't. But the baseball writers have decided that they can make a judgment between who did and who didn't. I'm sorry, you can't. Yeah, right. I mean, and so you either wipe out the whole era or you just say, okay, this was how it worked during this time, and these were the players who excelled. And for me, Bonds should unquestionably be in the Hall of Fame. It's not even a doubt. He should have been in years and years ago. The fact that he's already cycled off the regular ballot is absurd without getting in, and the same for Clemens as well. I mean, you may not like those guys, and I never had a problem with Bonds. I was probably in the clubhouse in his time in Pittsburgh, actually in his time in Pittsburgh, because he left the same time I did. I was probably in the clubhouse 5 to 10 times a year, like when they made the playoffs the 3 years. Those were the years toward the 10, and before that toward the 5. And I never had a problem with him, and he actually was helpful to me on occasion. So I know that not everybody had that experience with him, but that shouldn't be an arbiter of whether or not a player is a Hall of Fame player. He should be in.
A couple other Rose is my one that I know that people may disagree, but there's no way you don't put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame as a player. Because
I agree.
What people complain about that he did everything, all that was after he had done what he is accused of doing and has nothing to do with the other. So
yeah, I mean, he's not a good guy. I mean,
I know.
He did
not help himself in any way. I will agree there.
That's what I was going to say. I tend to agree, but Pete Rose does not help himself because he's been proven to be nothing but a garbage human being in the years. So I think that if Barry Bonds just, I don't know if stays out of the public light is the right way to phrase it, but he's not a controversial figure other than the steroid era. Pete Rose very much is. So that's not going to help his case. I do believe in, I don't know what the time frame is, 5-10 years. I do believe eventually Barry Bonds would get into the Hall of Fame. I don't know that that's going to be the case with Pete Rose because of who he is.
Yeah, he does. Every time you turn around, he's doing more damage to his case, and some of it is just abhorrent, and some of it has been just nuisance. But Bonds has made. You're right. He has stayed out of the public light. He for a while he was coaching, I think, with the Marlins, and I don't think he is any longer. But he did some interviews and came off fine. I mean, whatever happened when he was playing, he was still ridiculous as a player, and even before whatever happened, he was a great player. He was he was an MVP candidate. He was an MVP. He was an all-star. Even before whatever happened or didn't happen or maybe happened, whatever, he still was a great player. And when your all-time hits leader and your all-time home run leader is not in the Hall of Fame, I mean, and your game is baseball. I'm not sure that really adds up to a great representation of your history.
You know what's funny?
I'll tell you who, not to interrupt you, but on Alex Rodriguez, I was never a fan of his. Didn't like him before or after, but I saw him on something a while back. And you want to talk about who accepts responsibility? he makes no bones about it. He's like, oh, hey, he goes, there's just, there's mistakes I made and this and that. And but he accepts that. It's like he accepts he's not going to get into the Hall of Fame. You can just tell he's so open about it. I was shocked by that because I'm not a fan of it. Was not a fan of his, but
I don't know that A-Rod cares, to be quite honest. But the thing that was interesting, and I don't know if this is true about Barry Bonds or not. I remember reading a story several years ago that there was a push for Barry Bonds to be more appealing to the media, be a little bit kinder. And when he attempted that, he was not playing as well. So his teammates were like, go back to being a jackass and maybe he'll start hitting better. I have no idea if that's true. I remember reading a story about it. And some of his teammates commented on it, but I always thought that was funny. Like he was just not himself when he wasn't being hard to deal with, I guess. And I don't know, once you enter it, it's very different because I've talked with players before that in that realm, they're a completely different, they're a completely different person in the locker room than if you see them on the street. They might be the kindest person you see on the street, but in the locker room, not always the most pleasant to deal with. And I don't know what it is, but I feel like that might be somewhat the case with Barry Bonds. I don't know. It was just that was just something that always stuck out to me that he tried to make amends with the media, and then all of a sudden his teammates were like, no. Go back to doing what you were doing because you were playing better.
I don't know if I've told this story before, but I think it was 91. It would have had to have been the summer of 91. I was asked to do a big story about Stan Belinda for our Sunday paper. Belinda was the guy who was the Pirates closer at the time and sort of trying to build himself into a Dennis Eckersley or someone, obviously not, Hall of Fame level, but trying to become a star. And they were trying to make a star out of him, trying to get somebody they could throw out there, close games. So in arranging an interview with him, he said, they through the Pirates, come down Saturday. Well, my wife and I actually had already bought tickets to that game. So I didn't want to take all my stuff. And I don't think at the time I would have been allowed. I don't know. But so I just took a tape recorder and it's all I had. I just, stuck a tape recorder in my pocket. This is the day before phones could do it. And so I go and I got a press pass. So I go in the locker room before the game and my wife's, out in their seats or whatever. And I go in and I start to interview him. We sit down and we start to talk, and we're not very far from the stereo in the room. And it's all I have. I can't back it up with taking notes or anything. And as I'm talking, a left-handed pitcher named John Smiley, who really was the guy in the media who really didn't like the media, came over and looked at me and turned the stereo up the full blast, as loud as you could make it. And I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work for me, man. I'm just sitting there thinking, I hope this is not a problem. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to hear Stan talk. And it went on for just a little bit. And the player who came over and said, the hell with this, and knew exactly what was going on was Bonds. And he turned it back down to normal volume, and I finished the interview. So that's my experience with Barry Bonds. And I'll never forget that. And I was not at all unhappy when they traded Smiley at the end of that year.
That's a great story.
There's some guys that were just not. There's some guys who just weren't good people. But that's surprising to hear about Bonds. But it'll see how it washes out in the end for some of these guys, like Bonds and like Clemens specifically, who it seemed like were probably already there, and they were trying to. Clemens probably just trying to extend his career, and Bonds was chasing history but doing well. I'm sure he didn't see it as cheating because it was just helping him build his body. I don't know.
Well,
but we'll find out and see.
By the way, though, what's odd to me about the whole thing, because I think that there's a lot of people that turn their nose up in the baseball writers. They kind of resurrected the game. So it's weird. So it's kind of weird that there's this animosity. Like, no, you did a great job saving baseball, but at the same time, you got to do it the way we want you to do it. Well, if they don't go, I don't know if baseball. I don't want to say it dies, but it regains plenty of popularity because of what they did. And right or wrong.
Great point.
It's what saved it. So I don't know how you can consistently punish these players. And look, they're the ones that they're going to have to deal with the consequences of their actions in terms of their body. To me, isn't that enough? Like you said,
I mean,
Mike,
how much fun was
you
that?
can't decipher who did and who did not do it.
How much fun was the Sosa McGuire that summer? I mean, that was a blast. And I hate both teams they played for.
1994 was a strike. No World Series, no second half of the year. It's easy to forget now how soon after that those guys made everybody forget about 1994. That was 1998. So 4 years. And in that summer, the two of them erased, that huge animosity toward the sport that resulted from the canceled World Series. And now the guy who pulled the plug on that World Series is in the Hall of Fame, Bud Selig. And those two guys nowhere to be seen. And none of the people, several of the people who followed them down that path or in terms of hitting a lot of home runs, are not in the Hall. It does seem wrong on a lot of levels.
Five Left says those home run races were the first time I avidly watched baseball. Well, I can tell you it was the first time I avidly watched it in a long time, since I was probably a kid. I mean, going back to Saturday afternoons with Joe Garagiola, This Week in Baseball, Joe Garagiola, and who was Tony Kubek. Man, talk about some blast from the past. How about those names? That was back when there was just one big game of the week, and it was on Saturday afternoon.
Yes.
With Joe Garagiola and Tony Kubek. Man, that's funny how life is. Of course, I lived in the country. We got our news by pigeons. They let us the scores. Say, hey man, so and so won last week. Isn't that cool?
By the way, in terms of like Albert Pujols' stature, I know we're going back here. Frank Thomas, how did we not mention him? He was a big dude too, wasn't he? He was probably 6'5".
He wasn't as tall. He was actually not. No, he wasn't as tall. He was just massive. I was near him in an airport once, and muscle on top of muscle. But I don't think he was quite as tall. Well, no, I'm wrong. He was 6'5". You're right. I didn't remember him being as tall when I saw him, but he was.
Holy crap. How big was that guy? Was he then? Crap. Because his arms were like this big around.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Call him Big Hurt for a reason.
Yeah. I thought it was the home runs, but yeah, I didn't remember him being that tall, but I guess he was.
I don't think Pete Rose ever gets in. Personally,
I understand Forrest's point
yes.
that sort of like the backhanded punishment for him is
yes.
that he doesn't get in until that Pete Rose. What Forrest said was that Pete would not get in until after he passed away. I understand what he's trying to say there. I think there's a point there, and what I'll say in terms of agreeing with Forrest is
probably
if he ever gets in, I think Forrest will be right that it will be posthumously,
and it would be deserved, to be honest with you, both ways. For it to happen afterwards.
Well, he couldn't open his mouth and continue to tarnish his character would be probably the biggest reason as to why that might happen.
Yeah,
not to be too morbid here, but I'm just I'm not a Pete Rose fan. Carry on.
Tana's pointing out Frank Thomas is now hacking some form of HGH. Isn't it just more a men's supplement? I don't know what it is, but yeah, him and Mr. Boston College, Doug Flutie. I don't know. I forget what it is.
Oh yeah,
that one of those men medicines that they hawk out there. But yeah, it's so funny. What's coming up next for you, Mike?
Well, a piece that will be of interest, without a doubt, to Indiana Hoosiers basketball fans will come out on Thursday. That I did about Dane Fife. I spent a lot of time this summer with Dane, had a couple of meals with him, went to watch him practice with the 16 under team that he helped coach. He was an assistant for Phil Washington there. And it's an interesting story about how, to me, obviously the story that I was interested in is why did he come to Indiana under the circumstances to take what would be viewed as a lateral move from a program where he was established and that assistants had left before, but always to head coaching jobs, from Tom Crean to Dwayne DJ Stevens this year. They've had more than a half dozen coaches who've left, I think, all to head coaching jobs. And he chose to leave for an assistant job. Well, why was that? What was the reasoning for that? I think that was an interesting point that I wanted to get to. And we spent a lot of time, and I hope the piece turned out well. I was pretty proud of what it says, and I'll be interested to see what IU fans and readers think.
Everything you write is must read, Mike.
And this will be probably one of your biggest pieces of the year, judging by just the reaction on certain things of ours. So I shouldn't say that because you have such a national audience, but it'll get a lot of attention from that area. Because there hasn't been a lot said.
No, there was some things.
There's been nothing said. That there's been speculation, but nothing has been documented.
Yeah, there haven't been any mainstream media reports about the process, but there were some things that were suggested, and Dane wanted to clear up some of that, a couple of items. And there were things he couldn't tell me, and things that IU wouldn't because of the nature of their agreement. But there were a couple of things that he wanted to be pretty specific about, and so that's a big part of the story as well.
Well, it'll be very, very interesting, and make sure you find that on Thursday. Become a subscriber to the Sporting News if you're not already.
All of our articles, Jim, are free. You don't have to, unlike other publications, the sporting publications, sportingnews.com, everything is free. Doesn't cost you a nickel. Just have to go there and find it.
That's even better yet, because Mike is a Hall of Famer, one of the best in the business, and I'm sure that is going to be very interesting. Looking forward to that, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. See, good luck to the Steelers. The Pirates. That ship is already out in the Gulf of Mexico somewhere doing circles with the Reds. Yeah, the Reds, the Pirates, and
Kansas City. Don't leave them out.
Kansas City, the Cubs, the Nationals. There's about 6 teams. I meant to bring this up earlier. I know we've got to go on a break, but I don't recall ever seeing so many divisional teams so far back. There are 20. There's the division that the Dodgers are leading, that the Padres are going to make the playoffs 21 games back of the division winner. That has to be a record. I'm like, what the hell? There are just unbelievable amount of it's too much top and bottom.
I do wonder whether we're going to set a record. I don't know whether, I don't know what the record is, but I do wonder whether we're going to set a record for the most 90 win teams. It does seem like there's an awful lot of that out there. Maybe that's normal. I don't know, but it just feels like you said, that there's more teams in that range, and a lot more teams, scraping along with 60, 55 wins than we've ever had before.
We'll certainly find out, brother. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you. Look forward to it each and every week. I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, guys. It's always a pleasure.
The great Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from Remax Realty. If you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between you getting the home you want. Or if you're down in southern Indiana, Louisville, Floyd, Clark, Harrison, Scott counties, all down through there. No one has served that area better than Barbara Pop Real Estate Services. For 3 decades, they have taken care of the families in Southern Indiana and Louisville. Reach out to Barbara at barbarapop.com or Matt Lincoln, Matt@barbarapop.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore Honda.
There we go.
Come on.
Come on, folks.
I'm going to turn that damn vent off in here. It
We're
used
not
to be
even
the
a week
opposite.
into fall, and we're bitching about the cold.
Well, no, it's multi-floor and this, that, and the other thing.
I couldn't be happier that my air conditioner's not running right now.
There you go. Bam.
That thing can go to hell because I know in the spring I'm going to have to replace it.
You won't need it for a while now.
That's what I'm saying. Just give me to March or April and we'll deal with it then.
That is crazy, isn't it?
When September ends.
Good song. Good song.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
Green
Nickelback,
Day.
but it is.
It was Green Day. Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Hey, speaking of Nickelback, get ready. November 18th. I think it's their 10th album's coming out, something like that.
God.
Their 10th. What number are they on? Either 11th. That's their 10th. Someone's bringing up Arnie's Pizza again. I'll try me some Arnie's here soon since there's one over in New Albany.
Had it. See, I'm not a deluxe guy. I've got my specifics that I like, especially with certain pizzas. You have to know them. And here's a trick. The Arnie's in Floyd's Knobs and the Arnie's in New Albany are different. One is a gas oven. One is an electric oven.
Which one do you prefer?
Floyd's Knobs.
Good to know.
I think it's gas.
All right, here we go.
1-7-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com.
This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Jim Coyle with you as always, as is Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com. Brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar, part of the WOW Club. Make sure you go to your Apple App Store, Google Play Store, sign up for the WOW Club. Start earning WOW rewards today. Feast Market and Cellar, of course, located right next door to Southern Stone Restaurant on Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington. An incredible wine selection, sommelier to help you with your pairings, and then some incredible food to go along with that. Great place to hang out. Lots of people love hanging out there. Boy, we're not going to have this discussion again. I'm going to hit it real quick. Where's Tanis? Tanis, Arnie's is not like Pizza King.
No. Oh,
Arnie's
boy.
and Pizza King are as similar as White Castle and Crystals. That's the similarity. They look similar.
But a large majority of this audience may not even know what a crystal is. But it's basically, it looks like White Castle, but it's in the South.
It's in the South. But it doesn't matter in Bloomington right now. It's Pizza X, baby.
Pizza X.
X marks the spot. X marks the spot. I wonder how our buddies are doing over. I wonder how Chef JD's doing today. What he be cranking up? Oh man, I made some butterfly pork chops last night that I got from.
Did you really?
Oh,
let's hear about the marinade, the rub.
There's no marinade. I stopped doing marinades. Rubs
Really?
only on everything. Steaks,
Okay.
pork chop, doesn't matter. And it's very simple at all of them. I just use kosher salt.
Yep.
Some pepper, some garlic. It depends on the situation. Last night, some minced onion went on there. That was it. It doesn't need anything. This stuff is getting out. The night before that, I had some chicken that I had got from BB's that was marinated in there, sweet and spicy.
Oh,
son, oh my! I get every time I get. I'm like, if it's chicken, I'll get double. Two. If it's pork chops, I get two. Thinking I'll have an extra. There ain't been no extra left over.
There you go. I mean,
Yeah.
I love food, man.
Well, next up, ribeyes.
Oh, I'm jealous. We've already had this conversation. By the way, the filet mignon to me, overrated.
Crap.
Oh, come on. You'd rather
Bull
have
crap.
have a filet mignon than a ribeye.
It's all meat, baby. It's all meat for one, and it tastes
I'm not saying
incredible.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's got a good PR agent. How about that?
Forest State, 32 White Castles
Oh,
after his senior year. That's
I
a
would
lot
not
of
want to
White
be
Castles, man.
I would not want to be anywhere near Forest after that.
Oh my! Not for a week.
Uh-uh.
Not for a week. If you're familiar. Man, yes, it's cold. Indiana has extends an offer to 2024 top wing Rakeese Passmore out of Combine Academy. He is a great scorer, two-way combo guard, an intense lockdown defender. Yasir Rosemont and Kenya Hunter was checking him out. That's someone that Alec Lasley had mentioned prior to this happening as someone to keep an eye on. Go to thehoosier.com and to be kept up to date on all that is going on with recruiting right now in IU basketball, especially. Alec Lasley has that complete covered. There are highlights up of this kid. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can get a quick look. Yeah, he likes to throw it down, man. But Indiana's got a lot of offers out in that 2024 class. We are so close to Hoosier. Are you going to Hoosier Hysteria?
Me?
Yes.
I doubt it. I don't know.
It's the day before the Michigan game.
I also have we'll have to see. I have a schedule that day in terms of work.
I have a schedule that day. I have an itinerary I have to keep.
I gotta make my make my money.
Oh, I forgot. There is that. But actually, yeah, you could have to start earlier maybe. But part of that would be starting with us that morning, because turn it into the whole BB's thing and add that into take this to some other places. But
it'd be. I've never been. I don't think I've ever been to anybody's. Whatever. It used to be called Midnight Madness when I was growing up.
This would be something to it. This would be something to include in a piece, actually, because it's one of the big ones that there are.
Right.
On top of that, but then you've got Michigan that weekend. It's just a huge weekend. I think it's time to take a break. Up next, Chronic Hoosier is going to join us. We'll be talking about all that's going on with all that stuff. He'll fill us in. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends at Metalworks Brewing Company. You can find Metalworks located down just off the square in Bloomington. on 6th Street, right catty corner to Cabello, which is on the north side of the square. But Metalworks Brewing Company is the combination of a passion for beer, food, and custom metal art alongside a desire to be actively involved in the community. And you can get Metalworks Brewing Company at all the Block Club locations. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Chronic Hoosier right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Hey, this is John the...
Hey, this is John the producer.
That's right. Morning, Chronic.
Good morning, gentlemen. How's it going?
I'm freezing my ass off, to be honest with you. I think I found the reason. What the hell is that damn ceiling thing?
Gosh.
That's why. I don't know how that got on. But that needs to go.
I couldn't imagine it being September 27th and somebody complaining about the cold. I can't deal with it.
I'm not. I'm complaining about the cold inside of this room. What's up, Chronic?
Not a thing, man. It does feel like we jumped straight into winter this year. My God, it was cold this morning.
Boo.
There was no
complaining.
spring. There was no spring. It was crap summertime. And it was summertime, and then almost just boom. Yeah, we're getting screwed over.
No, it's
Don't get me wrong.
fall.
Afternoons have been gorgeous. It's just a cold morning right now.
That's just how it goes.
Yeah. Part of it too, man. The skin is a little thin this time of year.
There
Takes
you
a little
go.
bit of acclimation.
Daggone all right. Well, they still got the same old sale on there.
Daggone it.
Dadgummit.
Get a Honda Pilot or Passport for 1.9% APR financing.
Yeah, good luck finding one.
Oh, you don't have them?
Join the list.
I better not.
Oh, wow.
What do you all have?
Very little.
Okay,
Oh, wow.
Then I won't say anything.
But you can get on the list.
You can get on the
Guess you're
dating site.
advertising the list.
How about
John,
on
we've
this
got
adult
we've
dating
got
site?
infiltrators. Oh, there you go.
Oh, is it?
All right.
Those
There you
folks
go.
are back. Yeah, there they are.
I hadn't seen
It's
them
been
in
a while.
That's it. They
Oh yeah.
Won't let me block
They
them.
infiltrate my Instagram account too.
Oh, this Saturday is Harvest Homecoming Parade. Oh, that means Harvest Homecoming's next week. I hope I don't remember that. Forget that. That's a New Albany thing.
No, Albany.
No.
How is your brother still down in the Ville playing?
Both of them. Yeah, I got two brothers down there. Actually, just got to spend some time with one on Sunday, and then we're all getting together this Saturday. My baby brother's getting married again.
Again.
All right, here we go.
244040 or visit eaglepoint.com. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. An exceptional golf and dining experience.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Tuesday from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by our good friends at Andy Moore Honda, #1 Honda dealer around, baby. Joined now by our good friend Chronic Hoosier. Brother, it is a crisp fall right now we are experiencing.
You ain't joking, man. You are not joking a bit. It's like we jump straight into winter, at least up until like 11 o'clock when it starts to kind of normalize a little bit. But it feels good. It feels good. It feels good to be back in one of my favorite times of year here in Bloomington. Basketball right around the corner, football in full swing. It's hoodie season, baby. You can't help but love it.
You got that right. And that's never a bad thing. Football underway, of course. Indiana losing their first game over the weekend at Cincinnati. It looked not surprisingly off from what I thought it could be. A little worse than I expected, but they've got work to do, and whether or not they can get that done, I don't know. This week is a gigantic. It's so funny. Indiana, every game this year has had such importance, and I know that the coach speak with Tom is, the next game is the most important game, and I always preface a lot of questions with him. I know that the next game is the most important, but this one is important because it's on the road. Nebraska sucks. You really can't afford to lose to a team that sucks. Honestly, and getting a win in Nebraska is always valuable no matter what. So this is another huge game for Indiana.
No doubt whatsoever. I mean, this is life for Indiana in the Big Ten. Year in, year out, it seems, but it kind of feels like a broken record here. Hopefully, it's not a repeat of last year where the wheels kind of fell off following that Cincinnati game. But if you look ahead on the calendar, which I know no coach will ever admit to doing, for a team situated such as Indiana seems to be this season, you've only got so many winnable games left on the schedule, if we're being totally honest, and Nebraska would probably be at the top of that list. Currently sporting the worst defense in the Big Ten. It's the only team we've bested, at least defensively in the Big Ten right now, is Nebraska, at least as far as what they're giving up per game. We thought this would be the game that perhaps got Scott Frost fired, but Nebraska decided to preempt that party and just dispense with the extra millions of dollars ahead of schedule. So, it's a team that's on the ropes a little bit. And for an Indiana team that was feeling pretty good about 3-0, this gives them a great opportunity to move to 4-1 and pick up a little bit of momentum before they really jump headlong into the teeth of the Big Ten schedule and the grind we all know that's going to be, quite frankly.
And 4-1 is not a bad place to be. No matter what, before, during, or after the season, if someone was said, all right, after the first 5 weeks, if I said Indiana's 4-1, where are you? I'm like, they should be happy as hell. Happy as all get out, because you are already 2/3 of the way to bowl eligibility, and that gives you the best chance that you're going to have. So if they could get through these first 5 games 4-1, they've got to be ecstatic.
Yeah, and I think one of the big differentiating factors from this season to last, Indiana's heading into this one mostly healthy, which I think is a big win for the team right now, considering we've acknowledged they have very little room for error going forward. I don't know how much you're going to see changing going forward as far as schematically. I think yesterday's press conference was pretty revealing in a lot of ways, both what was said and what was left unsaid for this program. This is a team that's going to continue to struggle on the offensive line, where I felt like Bazelak has done a fairly decent job of managing the game, of being smart with the football, starting to see some more turnovers pop up, which is to be expected as the degree of difficulty increases. And while they may get a little reprieve from that next week, there's not going to be much of a let up going forward. So, I think it's going to remain imperative for this team to clean up some of the little things. I felt like execution-wise, once again, we saw a team that just really, really struggled to execute on both sides of the ball in the first half. And while they certainly made some significant improvements in the second half, unfortunately, Cincinnati beat us in the second quarter alone. 28 points in one quarter. IU wasn't even able to amass that in the entire game. So whatever it was that caused those breakdowns we saw, and they were some massive defensive breakdowns in that first half, they've got to find a way to minimize it, because going into the season, I'd question what's this offensive line capable of blocking, and how close to the defenses of the past can Tom Allen return this one to. And so far, returns aren't exactly promising on either of those fronts, if we're being totally honest.
So one of the things that I think we talked with Don Fisher on Monday, and we talked about how coming out of that Cincinnati game, there wasn't really much to be positive about. And the more I thought about it, I think there's some merit to that. But at the same time, Indiana did not play well for, I would say, a majority of that game. You gave up 13 tackles for loss, 13 hits on the quarterback, 5 sacks. Didn't play. The offensive line couldn't run the football. You had some of your best defensive players getting beat. Having said all that, Indiana was down 14, I believe, with the football and a chance to make it a one-possession game. I feel like there's at least some encouragement that this team, unlike last year, if they get in a situation, that game is probably 63-7. I don't get that sense from this team. I feel like no matter what the score is, they feel like they're still in it. And as ugly as it looked on Saturday, I think that there is some promise that this team doesn't just roll over and will continue to fight for 60 minutes.
No, I think that's a fair statement, and I think that is kind of a baseline minimum, what you would expect from this team. Because let's be honest, last year, and I think we heard a lot of chatter come out of the program in the offseason that a lot of guys just kind of gave up. They lost their will to fight as the season drug on and the losses started to pile up. And we heard a lot from the coaching staff about the one-on-ones they had with the internal leadership on the team, with a lot of the players, and how they really took offense to that, and they vowed not to let that happen. And I think you've seen that represented in their ability to continue to compete in the second half. And up to this point, they've had to come back in their wins in the second half. Now, while it was effective against lesser opponents, it's not quite as easy against teams like Cincinnati, against teams like they're going to face in the Big Ten East. And I think the big question that I was left with after Saturday, having now seen this happen repeatedly, week after week after week after week, what are they doing during the week in preparation that's causing them these failures, if you will, the inability to execute the game plan in the first half, and why is it only in the second half that they're able to get some of this stuff cleaned up and start to operate a little more effectively? And I don't know that there's an obvious answer. Obviously, we don't get to watch practice. We don't get to see the preparation going into it. But what we do now see is a very clear and established pattern that they are a second half team. And while that's all well and good, and you get the merit badge for a continued fight, there's no mercy in this league. You're not going to be able to surrender first half performance wise and expect to have a chance to compete against basically the rest of the schedule. Because even with a far diminished Nebraska compared to the rest of the league competitively, going on the road is not an easy task in any venue against any team in this league, and you cannot surrender that half and expect to have a chance to win it. It's just a losing strategy going forward. And I had some people in my timeline telling me, well, at this point, the game's already in hand. You're going to see a big let up from the opponent. It makes it a little bit easier to come back. And while there's probably some merit to that, I think from a play calling standpoint, I think from an execution standpoint, I think there's blame to be shared all across the sideline. And it's something that they absolutely have to address and get cleaned up, because it's going to be terminal going forward, perhaps in every game that they have left on the schedule, for being honest.
Here's the thing that I don't want to say aggravate, because I'm just covering it, but if I were a fan, that what I would find very aggravating. What was the biggest hole going into the season for this football team that everybody knew about? It was the offensive line. Everyone knew this, but yet now it's as if, wow, we're not getting things done on the offensive line, so we're going to have to make some changes. Well, no joke. I mean, you weren't getting it done last year, so why? I don't understand this obliviousness to certain things. It's like if Chad Powers ran a 5.6 40. You know what? You can run a 5.6 40 all day long. If it needs to be 4.6, it just doesn't cut the mustard. And so I don't understand what seems to be like the surprise that the offensive line is not producing. That's what I don't understand, is the seeming surprise from the coaching staff.
Yeah, that's the elephant in the room. And I've been reluctant to really address it head on. It is I think it's their primary weakness, to be quite honest. I don't think the offensive line is good enough to compete. We can talk about the Big Ten. We can talk about the Big Ten East. Let's just talk about Power 5 football in general. This is a team that has had a fairly soft strength of schedule up to this point. And the offensive line has really struggled. What happens when the degree of difficulty, when the quality of the opponents continues to increase, I think is just going to only exacerbate that glaring deficiency up front for the offense. And while Bazelak's been able to withstand some of it, you talk about the tackles for a loss. What was he hurried like a dozen times last week on top of the sacks?
13
hurries. I mean, he's just under duress.
Well, that was hits, I think. I think that was 13 hits, maybe.
Yeah, well, even when he wasn't getting hit, the ball was getting forced out of his hand really early.
5 sacks.
And you see this in the play calling. Indiana currently leads the nation in passing attempts, mainly because the rushing game has been, for the most part, ineffective for the Hoosiers, at least as far as moving the chains, keeping them on schedule as far as down and distance goes. And I think you see the offense trying to compensate for that with the passing game. Unfortunately, Indiana's in the bottom of the Big Ten right now in average yards per pass attempt. So as much as we try to compensate for that, a short passing game is probably still not going to be sufficient enough substitution for a semi-functional running game. And for all the changes that took place in this program in the offseason for the past several years now, the one area that probably needed to be addressed the most remains unaddressed, and Indiana will continue to pay the price for that until something changes. And, quite frankly, I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of flaws on the offensive line side of the game. But I think at the end of the day, there's just a talent deficit that is becoming more glaring with each passing season.
Okay, I'm going to chime in here because I kind of disagree. That's not to say the offensive line is good. I think they are bad. It's not a good offensive line. However, Indiana's found ways to score points. I'm far more concerned that the defense was supposed to be your strength. The secondary was supposed to be their strength, and they are terrible. It's not. They are not good. So to me, when that's supposed to be your veteran group. We talked about the second half. Usually second half teams, I understand the adjustments made at halftime, and Indiana's offense is performing much better, but it doesn't mean anything if you're giving up 28 points in the first half. I think Walt Bell and the offense has figured out ways to move the football to score points with a bad offensive line. And like you said, it has to get better. There's no doubt in my mind. It's maybe the worst in the Big Ten. But I'm far more concerned with the fact that your secondary was supposed to be the staple. You were supposed to be a solid defensive team, and not good. That's the most polite way I can put it.
They were bad, but also there was no pressure on the quarterback whatsoever.
Oh, but I'm saying the whole defense.
They were bad too. It was bad all the way around.
No, and I think that's totally valid. And, for Indiana, the bugaboo has always been, can your defense hold the opponent
right.
just enough that the offense can stay within the game, or can stay in the game. And while Bazelak is certainly moving the needle on the offensive side in the right direction there, again, you cannot give up 28 points in the second quarter. The way this team's constructed and expect to have a chance to compete. You just can't. And, there were some pretty massive failures on the defensive side, particularly in the secondary. And I think that goes all the way down the line. I do think it starts with getting some pressure up front. I think that starts with, some of your blitz packages. Quite frankly, some of those plays just look like guys were lost. Like nobody was on the same page. Some of the holes that you saw them just giving up, it's really inexcusable. And to be at this point, I understand there's been a lot of personnel changes, a lot of staff changes on both sides of the ball. But quite frankly, this looks like a team that doesn't know who they're playing with, because it was evident throughout the game and has been throughout the season. Honestly, we've seen a lot of these lapses. This hasn't been an isolated incident for the defense. Unfortunate, extraordinarily unfortunate. And I don't know that there's an easy answer, an easy fix, because it's all the way across the board right now.
I was just going to say, I just go through and I know Indiana's 3-1, but I just go through, and when you look at the offensive line and you tell me they scored 23, 35, 33, 24, I think a lot of people would think Indiana might be 4-0 because of what we thought the defense was going to be. And it's just not there. So again, I'm not saying you guys made great points. I think the offensive line absolutely needs to improve. They need to build depth there in the future. It's not going to happen this year. To me, the defense is far more concerning because when Indiana's needed the offense, primarily in the second half, it stepped up. The defense has made some plays at times this season, but I'm very concerned because Cincinnati is going to replicate a lot of what they see in the Big Ten this year. And there's a lot of holes, like you mentioned, Chronic.
Last year Indiana's defense was 13th in the Big Ten in efficiency. This year, despite the relatively soft schedule, they're currently 14th in defensive efficiency. But on the plus side, the offense is flipped from 14th in offensive efficiency last year. Lo and behold, now the Hoosiers are 13th. So there has been some improvement on that side, but as you mentioned, regression on the defensive side of the ball, and they're basically in the same position they were before.
Well, the good thing is we're roughly a week and a half away from Hoosier Hysteria. You've got all kinds of things coming up next week with homecoming. There's pro day. There's going to be a massive amount of events and people in and around Bloomington next weekend, Chronic.
Yeah, and I'm leaving town that day on Friday, so unfortunately I won't be around to participate in any of it, to enjoy any of it. But we're taking the family, hopefully down to the shores of sunny Florida. We'll see what's left after Ian rolls through here.
Wow, you're going right in. See, that's a good time to go through. Go right through there, and things will be cheaper, less expensive. Just kidding.
Well, normally, and it's been my experience, it does get a little calmer immediately in the wake of the hurricane. We're just hoping that it stays away from our area, which it looks like it's going to. It's
where are you going? What area is it? Oh, the Dustin area at the top.
We're heading back to Cape San Blas, part of Florida's Forgotten Coast, there in the Panhandle, just off of
because I've never heard of it.
Yeah. But you know what? Hurricane's how we ended up going there. To be totally honest, it's about 10 miles east of Mexico Beach, where Michael made landfall a couple years back and really, really decimated the area. The Cape's about a 15, 20-mile sandbar that kind of goes out in the middle of the Gulf. Real narrow, gorgeous beach is kind of like you get in the Destin area, but it's real remote, real secluded. And thanks to Michael, it's really recently renovated, remodeled, rebuilt. And there were some great bargains available a couple years ago. And then the pandemic hit, and more people figured it out. And after being voted the best beach in America for consecutive years, they are quickly pricing us out of the market. But we're going to make another trip down there and hopefully have some good weather and some good times, and we'll be watching Hoosier Hysteria as well as the football games from the road.
Is it anywhere near Sarasota?
No, it's really near nothing, man. To be totally honest.
I was just gonna say the Ugly Grouper on Anna Maria Island, place you need to check out.
No, it's that's one of the reasons we picked it. Is it's kind of remote, kind of secluded. It was a great place for pandemic purposes. I'm an hour away from a Publix down there to give you an idea how remote it is. There's a Piggly Wiggly in Port St. Joe, but that's about all you're working with.
Are you sure you're not on a boat out anchored off of shore somewhere?
I will be a couple of days. We got a charter and we got a pontoon for a couple of days down there, so we're looking forward to that. But no, man, it's a fun spot. It's a great weather, great beaches, great seafood. Great seafood. This time we're actually going to be just a couple doors down from one of our favorite spots, the Port St. Joe Shrimp Company, which is pretty much our meal every day of the week when we're down there.
Sounds great, brother. Cannot thank you enough as always. Hope you have a great rest of your week and a great vacation.
Looking forward to it. We'll catch you guys next week.
Chronic Hoosier joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends at Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. We've got lots more coming up to finish it out. to talk about. Did you hear about the guy that hit the $7 parlay?
I did not. No.
We're going to talk about it. 23-team college football parlay. He took a buyout, but it's still big. That'll be fun. Much more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Back with it all, and Dustin Schutte right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting. So Florida State. Wait a minute. What is. Man, I don't think Florida State had been in the top 25 since 2018.
It's a long time.
That is a long time.
Kansas still not in there, though.
I know.
They really haven't beaten anybody, even though they're 4-0.
Well,
it's just the fact that they're actually winning ball games against anybody that's surprising.
That's a great point, John. Because this happened. It happened a few years ago with Purdue. I think it was Jeff Brown's first year. I think they were 2-1. Like they played Louisville close. Louisville ended up being trash that year, or maybe not trash, but they were barely bowl eligible. Then they beat like Missouri and Ohio, and everybody was like, "Oh, watch out for Purdue, Michigan." And then Michigan came in and just.
Well, let me tell you who's really getting
slapped.
Screwed. How in the
Minnesota
fudge? How in the fudge is a Minnesota team 4-0? They just beat Michigan State on the road. They're probably going to win the Big Ten West. 21. What are you kidding me? You got them behind Arkansas, who lost to Cincinnati, or no, they didn't lose to Cincinnati, but behind BYU with a loss, behind Oklahoma, who just lost to freaking Kansas State, behind Baylor, behind Oregon, behind Utah.
All right, here we go.
Episodes of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It's Tuesday. Coming to you from the golf club at Eagle Point Studios, high atop the 18th fairway, brought to you by the Courtroom Sports Grill, located in Bloomington, or Bedford rather, my bad. Part of the WOW Club. Make sure you go to your Apple App Store, Google Play Store, start signing up, earning WOW rewards today. Looking forward to doing, BB's this week, of course, but next week's going to be fun. We'll have to do an extended show after that. There's no way to not, with all that we'll have. We'll have to do
Are they doing
bonus time
tailgate thing?
Don't say a word, John. Don't say a word, John. I get him out. Kick him back out. What did you say?
I said, are they doing one of those? Are they doing like the Friday night tailgate? Like I guess it's Hoosier Stairs, so maybe not. But didn't they do a Friday night tailgate one of the times you went? They set up a big thing before the high school games. I'm right on that.
Well, there's just so much going on. I mean, you got Michigan in town. It's pro day. It's Hoosier Hysteria that night. Homecoming on weekend. There's just plenty going on. It just who knows who all is going to be out there. But yeah, we'll make it a fun time regardless, like we always do. Ross said Troy Aikman took a jab at Indiana football last night after Hendershot made his first NFL catch. Well, that's cool for him. Peyton Hendershot doing well for the Cowboys, who won last night.
They did. 2-1
with a backup quarterback.
I tell you what, there might be a quarterback controversy in Dallas because I don't think he's looked great, but I mean, Dallas's offense
is winning, baby.
Winning is winning, and Dallas's offense didn't look great against Tampa Bay under Dak Prescott. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on.
Jennifer asking, what is Pro Day? Pro Day is something Indiana has set up for their players where all 32 NBA teams will be in attendance to watch these guys work out. It just gives them an opportunity to work out in front of some officials from the NBA teams. Maybe, I don't know if they're allowed to talk to them or not, to give them pointers on, hey, this is, you need to work on this or that, or I don't know how that's going to work out, but that's what it is. Which is cool for the guys like, well, obviously Trace and Race, but Jalen Hood-Schifino, they're going to be looking at him. Xavier, they're going to be looking at him. Malik Reneau, they're going to be looking at him. Early looks at people like Tamar Bates, the athleticism of Jordan Geronimo. So you're welcome, ma'am.
Mr. Coyle. Bet you heard that a lot in elementary school, didn't you? Mr. Coyle.
Elementary school? Why would I hear it in elementary school?
Because you got called to the principal's office.
I was not a bad kid. I was afraid to get in trouble.
I was too.
Afraid my dad would beat my ass. What are you
kidding me? Yeah, I'm not the only one.
I was afraid of.
Yes, exactly. Okay. I was not afraid of the school, but I was afraid of what would happen at home. Mine was more my mom, though.
No, mine wasn't, but she would give you'd have to, if you said something smart. I mean, what's my mom going to do to me? I'm bigger, other than, instead of punishment.
Wouldn't
say
spoon,
something
baby.
Smart, though. Nope, didn't need that. She used to wear all these rings. You say something smart, boy, you get a backhand right in the mouth. That's back in the days when you should do that.
No rules.
Well, and I deserved it. Yep, Caleb Banks is another guy. I mean, all of these guys they get to look at, but it's awesome that if they get to talk to them, it'll be great for the players because they can see some of the things they need to work on from a lots of different sets of eyes. But more importantly, it's what this is telling players like Liam McNeely and Derek Queen and all these other guys that are Indiana are recruiting right now. Not only if I go to Indiana, are they freaking crazy about basketball? They have this crazy Hoosier hysteria thing. They have these crazy fans. They play in front of nearly 17,000 people at home every night, and they get every road game filled. And they're on TV all the time. Oh, and they have a pro day. So yeah, it's something that I'm sure more schools will do, but only so many would be able to do it at a time because those NBA execs only have so much time. So getting that started now, very important, and that's partly because of Woody's experience, knowledge, and contacts with these NBA guys. That's huge.
That's a great point. His connection, we've talked about, he knows what it takes to get guys into the NBA, how they can have a more longevity in the league if they're able to get there. So that's a huge bonus. And then the other factor is we talk about Hoosier Hysteria, the pro day, the concert, all that good stuff, which is absolutely more for the kids. And that's who it should be for, the kids and the recruits. But I think the kids, I think the big thing too is, again, Indiana is playing some big-time opponents, and they get to go to Fog Allen Fieldhouse. They're going out to Las Vegas. They get to play Arizona, Kansas, North Carolina, Xavier. And while, yes, it's daunting, it's also very appealing. I mean, these guys want to play in these type of games, and especially if you get to play in some of the iconic venues and then you get to call Assembly Hall home, that's very appealing to a lot of kids. So I think that, look, there's a reason Michigan State continues to recruit well. And even though they don't play well early in the season, they've scheduled Duke, they've scheduled Gonzaga, they've scheduled North Carolina and some of these other teams as non-conference opponents, Kentucky, because it's appealing. The kids want to play in these games. They don't want to play 15 games against Northwest, South Dakota, East Central State, or whoever it might be. They want to play in these big-time venues. So big-time venues, big-time games. And so I think it's all – what I'm trying to say is everything is a culmination of trying to make Indiana a more attractive place to play for some of these high-level recruits. And they've done a great job in encompassing Hoosier Hysteria, Pro Day, Mike Woodson knowing what it takes to get to the NBA and then playing these big games. It's a perfect melting pot now. You just got to put it together and succeed on the floor. That's the final piece. It's a big piece, but it's the final piece.
That is it. Speaking of winning, baby, you guys always make fun of me on my parlay bet. And I'm going to start doing some other parlay bets. I'm going to start doing very inexpensive but very big parlay bets.
Yes.
2 weeks ago, a gentleman selected 23 college football games. It was a $7 bet. This is all he bet $7. Probably all he had left in his account. I think it was $7.03.
Yes. I did actually hear about this now that you said it was 2 weeks ago.
Once it reached 21, that he had hit 21 out of the 23, I think it was DraftKings, originally offered him like 100-something thousand payout. They did not take. Then they offered him a $250,000 payout if he would take it early with 2 games remaining. And he took it. But all 23 games hit. And it would have been a payout of, I believe, $1.03 million had he just waited on those other 2 games to play out. One of the games he had picked was Indiana, and they won in overtime. And they mentioned that as one of the close calls. There was another close call. But 23 games is absolutely insane, and you would have to have so much luck. I'm not going to be doing that. But I am going to do like some $10 biggies.
Okay, but see, that's exactly what I would be trying to do in the parlay world. I would bet if I was a gambling man, that's exactly what I would do, because you can bet, like you just said, $5 to $10, and then you could potentially win $1 million. There was one a couple weeks ago. I think it was the first week of the college football season. It was a $2 bet, and it netted somebody $20,000. $2 is all they bet, and I think it was a 10 or an 11 team parlay. It wasn't 23, but I mean, just the what you can do and the amount you can win with such little. Because look, it's hard enough to get one game right. So why not string it out?
It's not guessing. First of all, you got to try to take.
Well, it's educated guessing.
Yeah, and you got to try to eliminate the difficult ones as much as possible, and be smart at times. Instead of taking points or giving up points, just take a money line. And that's where I screw up a lot. I'm like, just take a win here, because I get greedy. I'm like, oh, that cost me money because it doesn't pay out as well. But it is what it is. I'm not, like I said, we talk about it on here because it's fun, but I'm not a big better. All my bets are small amounts, but
I think
I did not win this weekend. I've last night again. one team in 3 weeks. There's been one team every week that has cost me a total of $4,000 in payouts, not that I've spent, but in payouts, because parlays pay well. And people that say they're sucker bets, I disagree, because you just have to hit one every. That's the thing. You don't have to hit. You can go a while without hitting.
See, I think,
but I like it. I think to me, it's either that or what are you going to do? Bet $50 on a team to win?
I was just going to say, you could.
That's boring as hell. I'm like, you can beat. I'm like, that's like, hey, can you jump over this line?
What else can you?
Hey,
you can't
jump back over this line.
You can't buy much for $7 now any day anyway. So you might as I shouldn't say might as well, because there's
you can't
real
even
issues.
Get a Big Mac meal for $7.
But
you cannot even get that.
Point being is, like I said, yes, they are extremely hard to get, and people make a lot of money off of them. Vegas and those gambling sites make a lot of money because a lot of them don't hit. But if you can hit, I mean, you are talking about potentially life-changing money. Like I said, one guy took the payout at $250,000. I would take that every day of the week, man, for a $7 bet.
Can you imagine? But can you imagine getting that million? I promise you, I would not have been sitting here today. I would have been back tomorrow, but I would not be here today.
Right. You'd take a week off.
The background would have been different. I can promise you that. It would have been, you know exactly what it would have been like? I promise you I would have done it just like the Snoop Dogg Corona commercials.
Oh, yeah.
With him and what's his name sitting out there rapping.
Who is
that?
Is
he used to be on Saturday Night Live. Yes. That would be me and you.
It would be.
Yep, it would be. What's the latest on the hurricane?
I don't know. I've had the news on, but I haven't been able to listen because I've been doing something the last couple hours, so I haven't been able to check
the radar.
I could, but I don't have the volume up. So I don't know what the latest is.
Here's another story. Here's another story related to this week's game. Nebraska, I think it's at 385 now, 385 consecutive sellouts in Lincoln. And
did they get it?
Well, I'm sure that they will. I mean, there's no way that someone like,
what was
some big money guy is going to buy the 1,000 tickets.
You know what's really cool though that they did? I think it was last year, maybe. Well, it wasn't 2020, so it had to be last year. Is they bought those tickets and then they donated them to like children's charities and other people that don't get to go off, and that's really cool. So I think that if there's a couple thousand, I'd love to see them. I'd love to see them do that again to keep I don't care about the sellout streak. If it was good while it lasted. If it ends, big deal. If it continues on, to me, big deal. But it's really cool that they did that. So I think if they have the opportunity to do that, I hope somebody does it, because it gives a lot of kids and families a chance to see a live college football game, and win, lose, or draw. That's a really special experience.
Well, but if they lose to Indiana, that's going to hurt going forward, because
probably
they've had a shocking home loss to Georgia Southern.
Yep.
A brutal blowout to Oklahoma.
That would probably hurt it more than anything.
Did they beat North Dakota? Is that the win that they got?
That's the one win. And that might be the only win, too. I mean, we'll see what happens this weekend. But if they don't,
well, after this, it gets
tough.
Even in the West for Nebraska, Illinois is a solid team. Yep. Minnesota's going to crush them. I don't know how good or bad Wisconsin is. I'll be honest with you.
Northwestern is the worst team that they face on the schedule, and they've already lost to them. So,
but how good or bad is Wisconsin?
They're better than Nebraska.
We don't know that. Well, everybody's better than Nebraska.
That's one way to put it. I'm just saying, you didn't see it against Ohio State, but Wisconsin's defense is not great, but it's solid. Their offense can move the ball enough. I just Nebraska's defense is so awful. I mean, it's Northwestern, Indiana, Nebraska, and probably Michigan State. Those 4 teams, their defenses are just terrible. So I don't think Wisconsin will have much of an issue in that game. But I mean, I guess you never know. Nebraska did get an extra week.
Never know.
To prepare. Nebraska got an extra week to prepare for Indiana, so that might be the problem. Biggest concern.
Well, there's not a lot to prepare for.
Good.
Well,
so they should.
I'm not trying to be, negative. I'm just saying it's pretty simple.
You know what? This sets up perfectly. I know we got to run. This sets up perfectly for Nebraska to jump out to a huge lead, and then lose a 1-possession game because Indiana has played so well played better in the second half of games this season.
Well, and again, I mentioned this early on. Indiana has the confidence. And I don't care if it's in Lincoln. It doesn't matter. Connor Bazelak it doesn't matter. He's in his own world when he's playing. They have the confidence that they can and will score on you if needed.
Yeah.
Now that's one thing this team has and has going for it. That's big
30.
because this is the kind of game that they could use it in. Man, I cannot thank everybody enough. Thanks to Dustin, of course, Mike DeCourcy, Chronic Hoosier, John, the producer. Looking forward to tomorrow. Bob is back. Bob Kravitz, Kyle Ned and Rip, Rick Bozich. Big day. Thank you guys. Without you, we couldn't be. There's no reason for us to be here. Thank you all the most. Look forward to it. Look forward to talking to you again. Hope everyone has a great day wherever you are. If you're in Florida, stay safe. Our friends down on the river, down on the ref. Hope you all have a great day. And we'll be back tomorrow. Until then, for John and Dustin, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.